Let's talk triangles. So today we're going to talk right triangles, and tomorrow we're going to talk about any triangles. The reason that we're starting with right triangles today is this exact reason right here. We're going to determine how to figure out the perimeter of right triangles and then the area of right triangles as well. What that's going to help us with is determining the area of any triangle that I could give you and using that information. The reason that we're starting with right triangles is part of our formula for the area involves the base and the height. And the nice thing about a right triangle is the height is actually one of the sides of the triangle. So when you talk about the height, so let's talk about someone's height. Okay? If we're talking about their height, we're not talking about like the person being kind of tilted over and like this measurement right here. It's not that. It's like a straight up and down measurement how far the top of their head is off the ground. So that's height right there. So when it comes to a triangle, like this right here is not the height because that's on a sling. Okay, the height is this side right here that goes straight up and down, which is really, really key that we take a look at the side that goes straight up and down. And the side on a triangle that you can always tell the part that goes straight up and down is the one that has that little box right there. So that tells you that this angle right there is a right angle, 90-degree measurement, which means that, throwing a lot of geometry terms at you right now, these two things are perpendicular. Okay? Perpendicular simply means that this side right here is straight up and down, this side is straight side to side from each other. All right, what that also allows you to do, just like we talked about with our stick figure person, is that allows you to very quickly and easily determine how far off the ground that is. So if you kind of take this whole thing and slide it over, okay, that's what you're figuring out right there, is that height. I know it doesn't evenly line up, but that gives you that idea right there. All right, so let's talk the formulas for both. There's no fancy formula for the perimeter of a triangle. It's simply just triangles with three sides. First side plus the second side plus the third side. Okay? If you want to shorten that a little bit, S plus S plus S. Each of those, though, are different measurements for the most part. There are some examples in other triangles that they may all be equal, but in a right triangle, you're going to have at least two of those be different measurements. The area formula for our triangles, there are two ways you can write this. The first way is the area is 1/2 times, my apologies, times the base times the height. Okay, and remember, in algebra, when you have numbers or letters directly next to each other, like these are, that is multiplying. Okay, so that tells us that we are multiplying. So that's the first way that we can write it. Area is 1/2 base times height. The other way that we can write it, and both of these are the exact same thing, the area equals base times height over 2. And the reason that it also works out to be base times height over 2, when you take half of something, you're really dividing it by 2. So either of those work, and it really comes down to what you're more comfortable with. For me, I grew up with 1/2 base times height, so that's what I'm most comfortable with. But for today, I'm going to use both in our examples. Not in every single example, but I'll use them in different examples so that you can see it both ways. And it really just comes down to what are you most comfortable with doing. All right, so let's take a look at these together. Okay, so for each of these three problems that we have here. We are going to find the perimeter. We are going to find the area. When it comes to perimeter, okay, it's just going to be side plus side plus side. Okay, and you see that we have one of our measurements there that got cut off on the left. That missing measurement is 3 centimeters. So I have a perimeter that equals the sum of 3 plus 4 plus 5 centimeters. 3 plus 4 is 7, plus another 5 gives me a perimeter of 12 centimeters. Remember, when it comes to perimeter, that is just a straight up measurement. You don't have squared or anything like that, because that's just simply measuring that distance around. Alright, let's take a look at the area of this. So I'm going to start out first with the 1/2 base times height. So our area for this is 1/2 times the base times the height. If we scroll back up and we take a look, okay, the height is the side that goes straight up and down, and the base is the other side that connects to that and is perpendicular to it. This will not always be on the side and on the bottom, as we see here. But if we take a look at this one, okay, we notice it looks just like the example we had on top. So there's my height, and here is my base. The way that you can tell these very quickly and easily, they're the two sides that touch that right angle. Okay, it's a real quick, easy way. So if I can look over here, there's the right angle. So these are the two sides that will matter for that. We'll get to that in just a second when we get to that problem. But that's the key way that you can tell every time, is they're the ones touching that 90-degree angle, because they then form your base and your height. All right, plugging in the values for what we have. 1/2 times a base of 4 times a height of 3. The way that I like to do this one, okay, you can do it a couple ways. You could do 1/2 times 4 right away and find out that's 2. That doesn't always work the easiest for us. So what I like to do is I actually like to do that other multiplying first with my integers. 4 times 3 is 12. So this becomes 1/2 times 12. Okay, and then it's just a matter of what's half of 12. Well, that's 6, and our unit is centimeters squared. So for this particular triangle, we have a perimeter of 12 centimeters, an area of 6 centimeters squared. Let's take a look at the one next to that, to the right of it. Okay, perimeter again, side plus side plus side. I'm going to stay with the blue on this one. Okay, we have a side length of 6, and I'm just going to go around, plus 10, plus 8. 6 plus 10 is 16, plus 8 gives us 24. So we have a perimeter of 24, and what we need to do next is we need to determine what our area is going to be. So just like we talked about, okay, this 90-degree angle, the two sides that are touching that are the base and the height. Now I will tell you this, it does not matter which one is which, because if you were to take this triangle and rotate it to the left, 6 would be your height, and 8 would be your base. Okay? But if you were to take it and kind of flip it up so that it's now facing that way, okay, 6 there, 8 there, 6 would then be your base, 8 would be your height. So it really doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm just going to go with, we chose 6 to be the height, 8 to be the base. Okay, so I'm going to show you the other formula now. Area equals base times height over 2. Again, at the end of it, you're going to be finding out half of the base times the height, but we're just going about it a little bit different way. Okay, so area equals, our base we said was 8. and I'm actually going to delete this and write it over because you can't really tell it's an 8. So it's 8 times 6 over 2. I'm just going to put this directly to the right of it for space. Okay. 8 times 6 is 48 over 2. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do that division, 48 divided by 2, or what is half of 48. And a half of 48 is 24 feet. But it's areas, so it's not just feet, it's feet squared. This is something important. Both of those have an answer of 24. However, both of them are completely different things. Okay, what the first one is, the perimeter is, if you were to walk this, you would walk 24 feet to get around that. What the area is you have 24 of those little boxes inside of your triangle. So even though they're both 24, they're two completely different measurements because of the fact of one being area and one being perimeter, the measurement around. All right, last problem. This one gets a little bit trickier only because we're throwing in decimals. However, we have experience with decimals and we have calculators available for our disposal. If you feel confident enough to try this one on your own, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, stick with me. If you try this on your own, just check in with us to make sure you do it the right way. All right, perimeter, again, side plus side plus side. So perimeter equals 4.2 plus 3.4 plus 2.5. Add those all up and you'll get an answer of 10 and 1/10 feet. So our perimeter is 10 and 1/10 feet, 10.1 feet. Okay, keeping with this color, we're going to talk about area now. Okay, I'm going to use the way that I'm familiar with. If you would like to use the other way, feel free to do that. Okay, 1/2 base times height. In our next lesson, I will use exclusively the base times height over 2. That way you see that full on, that you can see how that works. So with this, okay, we need to figure out what our base and our height are. Well, here is that 90-degree angle, which tells me that one of those two sides right there is my base, one of those two sides is my height. The fact that this one's set up where one of them kind of looks like it's the floor and one of them looks like it's going up towards the ceiling, it's easy to just call this base and that height. But again, it doesn't matter because you're still going to do the same multiplying. Our properties of multiplication tell us that 3 times 2 and 2 times 3 are both going to give us an answer of 6, so it doesn't matter which order you put them in, we're still going to end up with the same answer when it comes to multiplying. So I'm going to plug in what I know. Area equals 1/2 times my base of 2.5 and my height of 3 4/10. When I run this math, I'm going to put that over here. Okay, it equals 1/2 times whatever 2.5 times 3 4/10 is, which is 8.5, 8.5. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to determine what half of 8.5 is. So if I do 1/2 times 8.5, plug it into your calculator, 0.5 times 8.5, or you can do 8.5 divided by 2. Either way, you're going to arrive at the answer of 4.25 feet squared. So 4.25 feet squared, or 4.25 feet squared. So area of that rectangle is 4.25 feet squared. Perimeter is 10.1 feet to get all the way around it. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at what happens when you have a triangle that is not a right triangle. So you can't as easily see what the height is. And we're going to talk about what to do in those situations. And then we are also going to be practicing some more right triangle practice for perimeter and area. So make sure that if you have any questions, you bring them to class tomorrow. And I'll see you in the morning.